What's going on, guys? Mackenzie Long here. So today we're talking about financial freedom, the step-by-step process. We're putting this into a playlist so you have access to all of them. And specifically what we're focusing on today is going to be money milestone number 2. We're talking about the 7 money milestones, and this is milestone number 2, proper protection. And the reason why we're talking out of this specific book, it's called How Money Works, Stop Being a Sucker, is simply because it's the #1 best-selling personal finance book. It's easy to read, easy to understand, easy to grasp the concepts, and it's actually fun to read. It can be done in about an hour, hour and a half, but it's also been on TV hundreds of times. CNBC has done an entire article fact-checking the book, and they loved it. Every TV show that it's been on, they love it. It's been on hundreds of times, so I love that aspect of it as well. But the one thing that the book does not do, and it cannot do, is help you with the mindset of becoming wealthy. And the reason for that is because everybody is at a different place and a different part of their journey. But what it can do is help at least illustrate the milestones so you know where you need to go next, because I think a lot of people get lost in this journey. Now, you can order your book if you'd like to on Amazon. I'll put a link down below so you can go ahead and get that. Or if you would like to become part of our giveaway, we're giving away over $50,000 in financial literacy resources, and we would like to get you some of those if you would like them. So there's a link down below. It's a MailChimp link. We have to get some basic information from you so that way we can reach out. We'll send you some emails, send you or give you a phone call so we can figure out where to send these resources if you would like to be a part of that. Now, that is not a YouTube giveaway thing or social media giveaway thing. That is literally our team invested the dollars into that, and we're giving those away to help with financial literacy. And today, of the 7 money milestones, we're specifically going to be talking about money milestone number 2, which is proper protection. Now, everybody knows the first payment goes to the house and the second payment goes to the insurance. And protecting our income is the same exact thing. I think they should actually call it income replacement insurance instead of life insurance, because that's really what it does. And the reason why I think life insurance is misleading is it doesn't give you your life back, right? If you have car insurance and you wreck your car, you get a new car. If you have homeowner's insurance and you wreck your home, then you get a new home. But with your life, unfortunately, they haven't figured that one out yet. So really what it does is it replaces your income. The responsibilities that we have created in our life, the life insurance is going to then take that as its responsibility instead of us. It's to make sure our loved ones can keep on living even though we're not there. It's a I love you check every single month that's going out to them versus leaving them with debt. Now, a good place to start, a little bit of education around figuring out how much proper protection you need or how much life insurance you need. The first place to start is around 10 times income. And the reason why this is important, or why this has kind of become the fast and steady amount, if you will, is it generally gets us started into the ballpark. So if you make $50,000 a year, you're probably going to want to start looking about $500,000. If you make $100,000 a year, you probably want to start looking about $1 million. And to break this down to make even more sense for you, because some people might look at that and go, well, I don't know, that seems like an awful lot of money. I don't know what my spouse would do with $1 million. I promise you, having done this for 9 years now, they find things to do with it, and it goes much faster, much faster than you think that it would. And most of it is not spent on frivolous things. It's usually spent just getting their life back on track. So an easy kind of way to picture this, if I can help you with that, is imagine $1 million. And so what's going to happen with that life insurance policy, if you have a good financial professional, they're going to help establish some things after you're gone for those people who are left behind. So let's say your spouse and your kids. So personally, we would work with them, and we're not going to give that $1 million in a lump sum. Now, it comes in a lump sum, but generally what we're going to do is we're going to work with that spouse to put it into something that's going to give them income. Now, that income is generally going to be about 4%. So out of $1 million, they can safely pull out about 4% annually on that, meaning about $40,000. So the question here becomes, could your spouse and your kids would they be okay if you're making $100,000, you leave $1 million, would they be okay living on $40,000 a year? Would that be enough? And if it is, great. If it's not, then we need to keep reevaluating this number. And one of the clients that I just recently worked with, this is kind of this situation. He makes quite a bit more than this, but let's say he was making $100,000 a year. His wife is a stay-at-home mom with their 2 girls. He doesn't want her to have to work. She hasn't really done a lot in the workforce, so it'd be hard for her to get a good paying job anyway. So what we did was she needed at least $100,000 to be able to take care of her and the kids if something happened to him. So we actually looked for more like a $2.5 million policy, because $2.5 million at 4% is $100,000. So he could basically replace his income. So does that give you a little bit better understanding of what's going to happen with that life insurance policy? That it's not just them going to Vegas and splurging, it's going to help them carry on their life while you're gone. It's allowing you to continue keeping your promise even though you're not there. Now, I oftentimes also get asked the question, well, does my stay-at-home spouse need to actually have life insurance? And obviously you're talking to a financial professional, so we're going to say yes, but I want to explain to you the reason why, and you can make an educated decision for yourself. And I've had this debate multiple times, and it has gone both ways, to where we didn't do a policy on the spouse and we have done a policy for the spouse and something happened to the spouse. And in every case, they wish they would have done the insurance policy, or they're happy that they did. And the reason for that is because although the spouse doesn't bring in income, what they do is valuable, meaning the cost of replacing them would be very expensive. That spouse that stays home, well, who then is going to take care of the kids? Well, we'd have to look at some kind of daycare. Daycare is very expensive, into the tunes of thousands of dollars a month. So what would that cost to have somebody else look after the kids? What about sporting events? What about all those things? Because generally the breadwinner works a lot. So who's going to take care of all of those other things while they're still able to work? Because generally they can't just leave their job and take care of their family and still make the same income they're making. So there's going to have to be some sacrifices made, unless there's an insurance policy there that can then help take care of those kids after that spouse, that stay-at-home spouse, is no longer there. And in both of these cases, you're going to kind of have to figure out what numbers work best for you, or work with your financial professional to figure out those numbers. Now, there's some other things that we're going to add to that. So if you need to pause this, figure out those numbers, and then come back and we're going to add some other things, or some other things that you might want to add to your insurance policy as well. And one of those would be, would you like your mortgage to be paid off? So if you have a big home loan, would you like for that to be taken care of for your spouse? So if we were already looking at maybe $1 million or a $2.5 million policy, and you've got a $300,000 or $400,000 loan out on your house, you might want to consider maybe adding a little bit more coverage to take care of that as well. Some other things that oftentimes are added might be education. Maybe you have a couple kids and it's going to be $100,000 to send each one of them to school, and obviously you're not there to make income anymore, so you might want to have that coverage pay for some of those things as well. And lastly, you might have some parents that you're going to be responsible for, and you'd like to do something for them, whether paying off their mortgage, or helping set up a policy for them, or taking care of them financially, or some monthly expenses that you would like to pay for them. You can plan that into your life insurance as well. Now, obviously, anytime we're talking about life insurance, it's going to get us into this whole debate between term and permanent insurance. Now, I've done other videos on that. I'm a fan of both of them, and I think that you should work with somebody who is as well, because they are going to give you the pros and cons of each, and I think that's important for you to make an educated decision, versus them only having the ability to offer one, so of course they're going to badmouth the other one because they know nothing about it. And this happens on both sides. They know nothing about it, they don't believe in it, but it's really because they can't offer it. So talk to somebody who can do both and figure out what's best for you. And regardless of which direction you go, there's one insurance policy, life insurance policy, that I think everybody needs. And I know that's a bold statement, but I highly, highly believe this. In all of my years of working, I wish I had access to this. It only came out in the last few years. But there's something called living benefits that you can put onto a term policy or onto a permanent policy. I personally like having it separate. I do it in my term policy, and then I also have permanent policies as well. And the reason why this is important is because it covers things like chronic illness, critical illness, and terminal illness. Things like heart attack, cancer, stroke. So that way, if something was to happen to you, but you live, you can actually use that death benefit as a living benefit. Meaning, let's say like my cousin right now. So my cousin's husband just recently found out he has some very serious heart issues. It's going to be the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. They have no coverage whatsoever, but even if they had a regular term life insurance policy, it wouldn't help them unless he died. Whereas what this policy would do is allow you to pull out up to 100%, hundreds of thousands of dollars to take care of yourself now so that you can actually get better. And I would rather do that in a term policy and sacrifice my term policy to be able to keep my permanent policy and the cash value that's in it. So, or if you're using a 401k IRA, wouldn't you much rather cancel your life insurance policy, get all of that money out of it, and be able to keep your retirement fund? Because that's the biggest challenge that happens to most people, either that or long-term care, and we'll talk about that in a second, is that they live a long time, but they get sick, they have a heart attack, cancer, or stroke somewhere through that process. And most bankruptcies happen because of health issues. And the reason why most people lose their assets is because they might have saved up $250,000 or $500,000, but of course, if somebody has heart issues, they're going to deplete their retirement dollars to make sure that that person lives. But now they get to live a long life with no money. And I don't know which one's worse, obviously. We know which one's worse, but it's almost just as bad as dying, living a long life and poor. And simply because we didn't prepare for these things. And really the cost difference is a couple dollars a month. I think when I looked for like a 30-year-old male, I think the difference was like $6 a month. So it makes sense to do that on a term policy. Even if it expires 30 years from now and you're 60 something years old, the most people are going to have those issues in their late 40s and 50s. So you kind of get you through that time frame if you don't have any issues. So something definitely to think about, a living benefit policy. Now, me personally, from everything that I've seen in the industry, I think Transamerica has the absolute best as far as cost and payout goes and what they actually pay for. There's other companies that have kind of copied it, but the coverage isn't nearly as good. They just call it almost the same thing, but it's not really what you think it is or what it sounds like. It doesn't pay out the same. So right now I would go with Transamerica if you're watching this around July 2022. And lastly, talking about long-term care. So this is something that we have a hard time envisioning, but I want you to know for married couples or for couples in general, it's about 70% of couples will need long-term care into the future. Now, what is long-term care? Long-term care is basically saying that you cannot do at least 2 acts of daily living, whether it's washing yourself or going to the bathroom or clothing yourself or cooking or whatever it is that you need to do. There's actual terms in the daily acts of living that if you can't do those things, you might need assisted living. You might need help. Maybe you need to live somewhere. If you've ever grown up with somebody with Alzheimer's or dementia, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They need help in every aspect of their life. So a long-term care policy is going to help pay for those things so that they can be in a home or they can have in-home care. And I think that's really important as well. Definitely something that you want to plan for. There's 2 different ways that you can go about it. If you're thinking about doing a permanent policy, you can oftentimes add this coverage to it. I think Nationwide has one of the best long-term care programs. What you want to look for is something called indemnity. Now, indemnity means that you only have to prove that you need it one time. Meaning, let's say I have to go into a facility, my wife only has to show them one time that it's needed, and they're just going to send the monthly payments. The other ones are going to make you show receipts. You pay for it up front, and then you have to show receipts and justify it every single month to prove that you still need that care. So I would go with somebody like Nationwide. Transamerica's is also really good as well, that I would look at those. And if you add it to a permanent policy, it's at a fraction of the cost in a permanent policy versus doing a standalone. But if you want to do more the buy term invest the difference route, then you might want to look at a standalone policy. It's just way more expensive to do it that way. So you might want to consider, if you're going to do that, also to look at a term policy. So if you're also planning on maybe doing that, you might want to look at a permanent policy. And that about wraps it up for proper protection. I'm sure it opened up way more questions than it actually answered, and that's okay. That's what you're a financial professional. That's what I'm here for. So if you have any questions, just go ahead and ask. Make sure you smash the like button if this was helpful for you. Comment as well, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the little bell. We've got lots more content coming out around this. And don't forget to check the other portions. If you're watching this as a standalone video, there is a playlist that's been created that has all of these steps in it that can make sure you're on your path to financial freedom. And I hope this was helpful for you. I will catch you later. Bye.